Welcome everyone to my newest segment on my channel, the Kaiju Chronicles. Since I could remember, I have always been fascinated with giant monsters for reasons I cannot explain. I guess watching a giant lizard that breathes fire and fights other giant monsters was pretty cool, since now I am in my 20s and I still think it's pretty cool. In the Kaiju Chronicles, I will discuss many different kaijus, from the most well-known like Godzilla and Kong to lesser-known ones from movies from the Sci-Fi Channel. Today, we will discuss a giant reptile that terrorized South Korea. I am talking about Yongary. Note, I will be discussing the 1996 Yongary, not the 1999 version. Description of creature. Yongary is a bipedal reptilian creature that its height and weight varies according to different sources. Its body is covered in scaly gray skin and a horn at the top of its nose. It has sharp teeth and claws with dorsal plates that run from the beginning of its neck down to the tail, with two spikes on each side near the tip of the tail. Yongary has yellow eyes with red pupils. It got its name from a member of the United Nations Yongary Task Force who remembered a fable that his grandparents told him about a creature that was able to cause earthquakes. Yongary's rampage began from the Middle East to Seoul, South Korea, and lasted a few days. Unfolding Yongary's event. This will be a brief summary of the events that Yongary was a part of. South Korea's government was notified that there was going to be a nuclear test in the Middle East. When the bomb dropped, it caused what was thought at the time a gigantic earthquake. This, however, wasn't the case. It was in fact a massive organism barreling its way towards South Korea. The Korean government, still believing that it's an earthquake, had people evacuating from the Hwanghae province. When the earthquake hit Panmunjom, the first shots of the creature emerged. When this news hit the government, they nicknamed the creature Yongary. The government responded by dispatching the military to face off the monster in the Ingwang area. The attack failed as modern artillery had no effect on the kaiju. A bigger discovery was presented when Yongary showed that it had the ability of long-range attacks that easily destroyed military machinery. When Yongary reached Seoul, the creature was drawn to an oil refinery and began to consume multiple tanks of oil. While feeding, it knocks over a tank full of white powder, later to be revealed as a precipitate of ammonia. The powder gets all over Yongary, irritating his skin, making him itch and scratch at its body. This information was known due to a child named Icho who saw these events unfold and went to tell a scientist/inventor that he knew. The government was deciding on using heat missiles on Yongary. However, the scientists warned the government that the missiles could do more harm than good, since it's possible Yongary would be able to receive energy from it. The government would eventually use the missiles, though it had no effect against Yongary. The scientists would make more of the precipitate ammonia and use it on the giant monster. While this would only put Yongary to sleep, it would give the scientists much needed time to make a stronger batch to hopefully kill the creature. This would work as Yongary would fall and start to hemorrhage and bleed until it eventually died. Abilities: claws, tail, feet. Yongary would use his claws, tail, and feet to destroy buildings with ease. Burrowing, hibernating underground until a nuclear test woke it up. Yongary was able to burrow underground from the Middle East to South Korea without stopping. Durability. It was quickly learned that normal weaponry had no effect towards Yongary. This included tanks, airplanes, and heat missiles. It was believed that the heat missiles would hopefully destroy Yongary. However, not only did the heat missiles have no effect, but it's possible that it actually made it stronger. Flame attack. During its rampage in Seoul, Yongary expelled a huge flame out of its mouth. While the flame was hot enough to melt tanks, it does have a disadvantage in that it has a short range. Horn attack. Yongary had the ability to shoot out a yellow beam coming from its horn. This beam was powerful enough to cut metal like jeeps and airplanes in half. Dietary. Yongary seems to have a diet that consists of oil. When rampaging in Seoul, Yongary was able to consume 3 giant tanks of oil from the oil refinery. It's unknown if this is the only thing that Yongary is able to consume. Status. Yongary was terminated only a few days after it was awoken. After having a horrible reaction to the precipitate of ammonia, Yongary collapsed to the ground, hemorrhaging and bleeding from an unknown area, eventually dying. It is currently unknown as to how and why the precipitate of ammonia caused such a severe reaction to Yongary. Future news and final thoughts. As of writing this, there isn't any news regarding Yongary. I think it's safe to say that it will be a while until we hear Yongary's name in anything. While there was a reboot, remake, reimagine, or whatever it was, it has been a long time since Yongary was on the big screen. Honestly, I'm not sure why, but I have a soft spot for Yongary and lesser-known kaiju. I do believe with the proper love, Yongary could have a decent remake and have people remember the South Korean kaiju. That is all I have on Yongary. I hope to make this a series talking about all kinds of giant monsters, and not just the well-known ones. If you like this, or my other videos, please subscribe. Thank you for watching.